Let's start with a prayer, shall we? Lord, I thank you for this evening, and thank you for bringing us here tonight, and bless our time of studying your land. Amen. So, because we're going to be going through more than usual, come on in, gang. I'm not going to be having as much scripture reading tonight because we're going to be hitting more places, and I wanted to get us through some of those. What I'll probably do is I will be talking about what took place there as we go through, just to give you an idea. I start right now with, we're in the wilderness, okay? And this is from Jericho, from the city of Jericho, looking to the west. There are some monasteries way up on the top of the hill. There's a monastery. There's one part way up there. All of those are dealing with the Mount of Temptation. This is the traditional site of where Jesus was tempted in the wilderness. And the valley, this valley right here, has a name, and it's called Wadi Kelt. Wadi Kelt. And Wadi Kelt, if you're really, really energetic, you can walk from there to Jerusalem. That's the old way. That is the route from Jericho to Jerusalem is right through this valley right here. So when we have the stories of Jesus going to and from Jericho to Jerusalem, he would have gone through that valley right there. Wadi Kelt is the name of that. That's also when Jesus was leaving Jericho after healing the blind man, Bartimaeus, and have all the individuals that were gathering around Zacchaeus and all of that. A crowd of individuals, the scripture says, followed him from Jericho to Jerusalem. And they went up through this valley, and it's about, as the crow flies, it's around 17 miles, I think, but it's probably 25 miles walking, uphill, by the way. Here you're below sea level, about 1,300 feet, and Jerusalem is somewhere around 2,500 or more feet above sea level.
Now, is Jericho down on the level toward the...
Pretty much, yeah. Jericho is not right at the shore of the Dead Sea. Jericho is I don't know the exact sea level where it's at, but it's below sea level, but it's not right at the shore of the Dead Sea. That is the beginning, if you will, of the wilderness from Jericho, and we will be seeing this. We will not be going up to those places. This is Qumran, the Dead Sea Scrolls. These caves are caves where some of the scrolls were found there. They just in the last year, I believe, found another cave that had scrolls in it. And no full scrolls found, but they found some fragments and things. So I think that's kind of interesting. At Qumran is where the Essenes had their encampment, if you will, their buildings, their colony. the Essenes were one of the factions of Jews. They were very much in copying the scriptures, and they were into a baptism type of a thing. They had baptismals, mikvahs throughout the region. And what you're looking at here, the Dead Sea Scroll caves are below us. Qumran, this picture is taken from the site of the Essenes in Qumran. And the caves are actually slightly below where you were at. And so you can almost look into them across this little canyon. Some people think that John the Baptist might have had some connection with the Essenes. Some people even think that Jesus may have had some connection with the Essenes. Most of the scholars don't think that's the case, but it's there are similarities in some of the things that John did and said, and some of the things that Jesus did and said with what the Essenes did. So it's not, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 all the time. Somebody can have a similarity, and it can be there because the Essenes did affect the culture around. And it could have been just from that point of view. This is another picture of the wilderness. Again, John the Baptist, we are told in the scriptures, went out into the wilderness and preached. And where he lived, we have a pretty good idea. He was baptizing, the scripture says, at Bethany beyond the Jordan. And the last time we met, I had a photograph of the Jordan River baptismal site near Jericho, and that's close to where they feel John baptized. But people came from Jerusalem out into the wilderness to hear John preach and to be baptized by John. And this is just another view of the wilderness, what it looks like there. And throughout the wilderness, and you'll be seeing many Bedouin camps. The Bedouins, some live in different types of places than others. Some still have tents, the big black tents. Most of them are in a little more permanent setting. What you're looking at is a combination of places for their animals and places for them. This is probably an extended family. This is probably grandfather and his sons and his sons' sons and all of them living here, raising their sheep and their goats and that type of thing. And what's that? Cell tower. That is a cell tower. Yeah. If there's one thing that is going to be in Israel is good cell service. Okay. Not for us unless we have a really good plan. That's a. And these folks don't have electricity running to their places that you can see usually. But some of them do have televisions and things. You see antennas up once in a while. So they're not like the Amish, okay? They are, all of them are descended from nomadic people. The Bedouin people were nomadic shepherds. And the Bedouins are an ethnic group, Arab ethnic group that is, protected by the Israelis. The Israelis try to make sure that they're taken care of, as best as they can. But the Bedouins are not, they're pretty independent too. And, it's kind of hard to get them out of the valley.
So they're free to roam a particular area?
They, I don't know all of the rules. I believe that, they may have some regulations as to where they can graze their sheep and stuff like
Is
that.
that another settlement on the crest of the far
I'm guessing it's probably all the same extended family, but I can't say for sure on that. But this one was just alongside the road. This is En-Gedi. Remember the story at En-Gedi? Where David and Saul, David had an encampment, not an encampment, he and his men hid out in En-Gedi, and this is only a portion of En-Gedi. En-Gedi is the national reserve, and there's water flowing there year-round, and it's a place where David was hiding in a cave. And remember the story? Saul came into the cave to go to the bathroom, and David could have killed him, but instead he cut a piece of Saul's robe off, and then the next day, he hollers out at Saul in the camp, and somewhere in this area here, Saul's army is, and he's waving part of Saul's robe that he cut off during the night. So that's one of those interesting stories in the scriptures, I think. This is in En-Gedi. One of the things in En-Gedi is there's water, and this is hard to see. That is a waterfall right there. Okay. And there's not going to be water flowing down there all the time. But this water here, because it's starting all the way up in here, this isn't, this isn't groundwater as such. This is more than likely from a rain that fell in Jerusalem. And the watershed for Jerusalem on the western slopes of Jerusalem goes to the Dead Sea. And one time when I was there, in fact it was my first time, they had the first rain of the year from, I think the last time it rained was something like in early February, and I was there in October, and it rained in Jerusalem during the night, and we went to Masada the next day, and water was literally rushing across the road into the Dead Sea. And you could see these, just streams of water coming down all the way along the western shore of the Sea of the Dead Sea, and that was all water that the night before fell in Jerusalem. And so that's all of these wadis and waterfalls and things cut through here over the centuries from the high ground in the Judean hills, and the water came down to the Dead Sea. There's wildlife in the wilderness. The wilderness has animals of various kinds. Some of them are kind of cute, really. These are hyraxes. The scripture talks about the hyrax. Interesting thing about the hyrax is, it kind of looks rodent-like or something, but it's not. If you see its feet, actually, its feet have the same bone structure as an elephant. And, they feel that it's in the same extended family of the elephant. And these guys will be in the trees, bushes and stuff. They'll be eating, stuff around. Around Engedi especially, there's a lot of them in that area. But how could they be anything like an elephant? Yeah. They have tusk. Isn't that a nice looking animal there? That's a Hyrax. And cute little guy, isn't he cute?
How big are they?
They're about groundhog size.
Wow.
Yeah.
Raccoons.
Yeah, something like that. It's they taste like chicken.
Don't they call them conies in the Bible?
Yes, right. What was the name you had? Gonies?
Conies?
Conies. Yes, that's the other name for them. Yep.
Conies.
Coney. But anyway, they're cute little guys. And by the Dead Sea, we on our way to Masada, we'll most likely see hyraxes. But the other thing that we hope to see are ibexes. The wilderness has a lot of ibexes. The mountain goat of the wilderness. And it is amazing how they can walk on a vertical, walk, It's just amazingly sure-footed. They're about that high, at the most. They're not a large animal, Now these are either young ones or females. But the males' horns, will literally come all the way around and almost meet, and they're huge, just huge. They're a beautiful animal. So when you think of animals in the wilderness, there's also in the wilderness hyenas, jackals, not hyenas, just jackals, excuse me. And there's a cat that's still around there. There used to, years ago, have a type of a desert lion, but there's still a wild cat of some kind that's still in the desert there. And rabbit type things. There's a lot of birds, and that's, I like that part, of course. I like the birds. But,
Snakes?
yes. One time, I think Ian, when you and I were at Engedi, I remember looking up, and I took a photograph of it, but it looked like a snake curled up on a rock. It was so far away, and I didn't have a real good telephoto lens, but they do have, snakes in the region. They have mongoose. Yeah, that's right. Mongoose are there. This particular animal, the ibex, is the Nubian ibex, and there are ibexes around the world, but this is the Nubian ibex. This is the Dead Sea, and what you're looking at right here are some, kind of looks like a tide pool, doesn't it? There's nothing living there, I can tell you that. What's happening with the Dead Sea is it is evaporating and being utilized for taking the minerals out, and also the water is being used for irrigation upstream, so less water is going into the Dead Sea, and it is getting smaller and smaller. To give you an idea, this map here shows the Dead Sea. It is not like that anymore. The Dead Sea is only this big.
Dam?
What's that?
The bottom part.
It's dried up, and it's on. There are pools. There are evaporation pools that they have. It's divided up. If you get on Google Earth or something, you can see that it's gridded off, and they have evaporation pools there where they will let some water in and let it evaporate and stuff. But it's basically solid across the lower third of the Dead Sea.
And it says here some of it's 1,300 feet deep, in addition to being 1,300 feet below.
Yeah, in this part of the Dead Sea, right in the upper northern part, they feel is around 1,300 feet deep, as well as being 1,300 feet below sea level. And I don't know, how anybody could ever. I don't think divers do anything there. I have no idea. I can't imagine it because you can't swim in it. We float in it, and I was told you can't swim, so I had to try. And you know what happens? It's you're so buoyant. You go to take a stroke and you roll. You cannot sink, and it's very muddy. In fact, the mud is used for medicinal purposes, homeopathic medicine. There are people that feel that if you go down to the Dead Sea and just cover yourself with this mud, that it's good for you, and at least it looks like it is anyway. But and you can buy the mud. You can buy Dead Sea mud. And it's I mean, there's an angle for everything, isn't there? What I wanted you to see in this picture, it's this area here, 15 years ago was underwater. 50 years ago, you can see this line right over here. There are trees and stuff in that area that's irrigated, and there's a kibbutz in that area. The road goes right along here where the Dead Sea used to be. It's gone down that much. This picture shows you can see, I don't know the date on this particular satellite photo, but this is the end of the Dead Sea now. This southern part here is pools, predominantly.
Where was Sodom and Gomorrah?
Sodom and Gomorrah was, let me see if I've got a different picture here. No, that's a good question. Good question. Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, here's this picture too shows the Dead Sea. You can see where that's all filled in. Sodom and Gomorrah, they feel was right in this area right here.
Okay.
Yeah, on the southeastern side was Sodom and Gomorrah of the valley. Aren't those hydrixes cute? Okay. Now, what I wanted us to see here was to give you an idea of the wilderness, the size of the wilderness, and what is where. Jericho is right here. Qumran, Dead Sea Scrolls, right here. And you can even see the Jordan River doesn't even go all the way in to the Dead Sea anymore. Yeah, it's that sad of a situation in that picture. You can see. En Gedi is down here. This is where David, and his men hid out in the springs of En-Gedi. Masada is right here. The fortress that Herod had built. Jerusalem, right here. Bethlehem here. And the wilderness is this area through here. So when the scripture says that Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days, it could be anywhere in there, where he was at. That area is populated with Bedouins predominantly. And it's also has plenty of trails for four-wheel vehicles and mountain bikes and different things like that in that area. Can't see it really well, but right here, see that? Here's Bethlehem, and right here is the Herodian, which was Herod's fortress that he had to the south of Jerusalem. This Hebron is right here. And Beersheba should be down in here someplace. I don't see it on the Negev desert starts right there. So somewhere in there is Beersheba. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at when we say the wilderness, and where Jerusalem and Bethlehem are right on the edge of the wilderness. That they are right there. I mean, a little ways out of Jerusalem, you go over the Mount of Olives and get to Bethany area and Bethphage, and you're suddenly seeing the hills of the wilderness.
So, Bill, about how many miles between the top of that map and the bottom?
From here to here,
Yes.
maybe 30, 35, something like that. The width of the country, right, like the width of the country up here is just about 30 miles, and here is, 50 something. So,
I read somewhere where Jerusalem was 38 miles from the Mediterranean. Was it 19 to the Dead Sea?
something like that. I'm not exactly sure on the mileage there, but it's something like that. The satellite pictures are, help me to, get an idea of what's going on there. But again, the way from Jericho to Jerusalem comes through the Wadi Kelt, which comes up this way and then over to Jerusalem here. That's the way up. This is Masada. Again, behind Masada there is what used to be Dead Sea. That's you can almost walk to Jordan from Masada now. But the fortress of Masada is a phenomenal place.
Now, didn't the Romans, in order to overcome, they built a ramp up to Masada?
Mm-hmm.
Is that still visible?
Yes. In this picture, it's right. You can't see it well at all. It's right. This is one side of the ramp. The ramp goes down this side, and it's still there. And the Roman camps are still there. But from the top of Masada, you look down, and the outlines that the Romans built stone walls around their various encampments for the various companies of soldiers and stuff. And you can see them from Masada, and they're on three sides. They're on this side, on the end, and on the side where the ramp is too.
So how do you get up on top?
You can walk. There is a pathway that goes up, and then it kind of goes snakes back and forth up to the top. But most sensible people take the tram, and it's a beautiful, ride up, because you're high in the air, heading up to the top of Masada.
Should gift shops at the top?
There's an office up there, and I think you can get film there, but it's a national park, so the national park office is up there. But down below is where the gift shops are, and it's also where we eat and things like that. But that's Masada, and it is definitely an interesting place. The upper area is fascinating. I mean, it was a village, with granaries and all kinds of things there. And they also had huge cisterns to collect water. And something very, very interesting, and they have a model of it. You think, how did they get water here? Well, the cisterns are deep, for one thing, but when it rains in Jerusalem, the water comes down. Well, they made channels, and the water comes, and it would come to a level right about in here someplace. I can't remember exactly where it was. They had a channel that channeled the water in, so about halfway up. The water was, coming in, so they could collect it there and fill the cisterns. Of course, are thousands upon thousands of gallons of water in these stone cisterns that they had carved out. Herod's palace was here. I mean, there's the fortress and stuff here. The palace had different levels. A little bit up here, but there's a level here and a level here. Had a swimming pool, there too. He liked swimming pools. It had up in this level there was a sauna, and we walked through the sauna area there and see how the technology of heating the floors. Have the heated air going underneath the marble floors, and the marble floors would have the water, and that would steam, and just a interesting thing. But there's nothing in the scripture about Masada. Masada is, from the history of the Jewish people, it's a very significant site because it's where one of the last groups of Jewish rebels drew lots and took each other's lives and suicide and stuff like that, rather than being taken by the Romans. The Herodian is not mentioned specifically in the scriptures, but it was there. This is the Herodian. It is a man-made mountain. Herod had a cylindrical palace fortress built, and then built the mountain around, and then there was palace down below, and again swimming pools. And that's part of the life, I think. Keep cool. But that is what we're looking at here is the western slope of the Herodian. There was there were Roman soldiers there all the time. This is an aerial view of the Herodian, and Herod's tomb was right down in here. King Herod was buried in the Herodian, and the sarcophagus that he was in is now in the Israeli Museum, but that's where he was buried. This is a double-walled fortress. The rooms for soldiers and stuff were in the walls there. There's different buildings and stuff that were inside that are like a courtyard area and a different formal buildings. There was an area right in here that was where the soldiers probably did their push-ups or something. I'm not sure, but from right here, this is the northern slope of the Herodian, and from here you can see a long ways. This is the view from the Herodian, and when you think of this fortress, right there is the Mount of Olives. Okay? That's the old city of Jerusalem is right below that. Bet Sahur is where the shepherd's fields are. Bethlehem, right here. Bet Jala, a hotel that we'll be staying in the extension time. But that Bethlehem is visible from the Herodian easily. The wilderness of Judea is right in here, and just over the edge of the hill is the Dead Sea. So this fortress, I took photographs looking all directions from it. You can see so far. I mean, it is amazing. And it was primarily built not to protect, this area between here, but the southern exposure. This was the place where Herod would protect Jerusalem from anybody coming from the south. The main roads from Hebron and Beersheba and stuff from the Negev desert and stuff would come up through here. In the Herodian, remember the story from the scriptures when Joseph was warned in a dream to leave Bethlehem, and Herod got all upset and had soldiers come and kill the boy children in Bethlehem under 2 years of age. They most likely came from here. It would not have taken long. When you think of Joseph getting warned in a dream and getting out of there, the soldiers are probably already on their way there. That is the location of what we're dealing with. There's a lot of farmland, predominantly orchards, like for olives and almonds, and then grazing land for sheep and goats in this area. One of the things, I think I've got another picture here. Move ahead, right here. This is from Bet Sahur, or Shepherd's Field. This is the traditional site where the shepherds heard from the angels. And the angels announced the birth of Christ. This is, Shepherd's Field, and there's the Herodian right there. So you can see from Bet Sahur and Bethlehem, you can see the Herodians sticking up out of the countryside. But Shepherd's Field probably hasn't changed a whole lot since the time of Jesus. There's still a lot of sheep there, and no, they do not come with pink on them. That's the shepherd has identified his sheep that way. The sheep that are native to this area have a special name. They're called fat-tailed sheep. And that is a very good name. The tail of that sheep is wide and thick, and it's all fat. And that's when they do butcher the sheep, that's where they get the fat and stuff. There's a lot of it right in there. Again, this is an aerial view just to show you what's what. It's hard to make out, but Jerusalem is right here. Right there is Temple Mount. And Jericho is down here. So that just to give you another aerial view of that. This is the Church of the Nativity. One of the oldest church buildings in Christendom. Not the oldest, but one of the oldest ones. It was, the original building was built by order of Constantine's mother. Mothers do that kind of thing. Do you know the story of Constantine's mother? It's a wonderful story. She was a Christian. She converted to Christianity, and Constantine didn't. And she, prayed for his conversion, and he finally did. It's a longer story than that, but she longed to go to the Holy Land, and he basically said, "Go, Mom," and he sent her not alone, but with plenty of people and also plenty of money, and she went with a purpose in mind. She went to find the places where Jesus did the things that he did, as nobody had really, written about it. This is, 300 years after the death of Christ.
She was the first tourist.
What's that?
She was the first tourist.
She was the first, yeah, she was one of the first, probably not the first, but one of those, yeah. She went there, and now picture this, if you will. This is Bill Shannon's take on it, okay? Yeah. You have the emperor's mom coming into town, all right? And the emperor's mom says, "I want to see where Jesus was born." Yeah? And you've got just ordinary folks saying, "All right, this sounds like a good idea." I know where. That sounds like that could have been it. However, there was more to the story. Christians had been worshiping in the caves where Jesus, we feel that Jesus was born in a cave, stable area. There are other caves that are around there. And they have found the burial sites. They have found, niches where Christians were buried. And prior to the time of Helen, Christians were using this site underneath this building, as a place of worship and commemorating the birth of Christ. So that is more than likely some semblance of truth then, that this it has some significance. We don't know if that particular cave and where that that grotto is the exact spot, but it is this area, where, somewhere within this property area certainly seems to be the place where Jesus was born.
She also brought a set of steps back from Jerusalem to Rome, and they're in Rome attached to one of the thousands of churches over there, and you can only go up those steps on your knees.
Is that, she did a lot of things. She, when we look at Jerusalem next week, we'll be talking a little bit more about Helen, because she claims to have found the cross, and so pieces of that wood that she brought back are all over the place now, but anyway, Constantine's mother spent a long time in the Holy Land, and she literally went throughout the story of Jesus to all of those places, Nazareth and Capernaum and all over Jerusalem, and chances are the things that she did, especially with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and the Church of the Nativity, those two places in particular, we probably wouldn't have today, because they have found underneath those churches, the evidences of early Christian worship and stuff before the time of Helen. So that's, we would not have that, to this day. This is where we're looking. You see the little door down there? That door is, you got to stoop down to get in to the church. It's and there was a reason for it. The story is during the time of the Islamic taking over of the region. Christians, to keep the Muslims out of the church, they stoned up the door, so you could not enter the church without stooping down, and you certainly couldn't enter it on, a horse or a camel or anything like that. So to stoop down and come in, you are definitely vulnerable to whoever's inside. So it was a protection, and then after that it became more of a symbol of humbling yourself as you come into the church. That you have to bow to go in. That's the thing. That's not why it was built, but now that is part of that. Directly opposite this is Manger Square area. On the other end of Manger Square, about where John's at, on the other end of Manger Square is a mosque, and that Manger Square is used by Christians and Muslims alike, and they get along. It's the community of Bethlehem at Christmas time is phenomenal. Christians and Muslims alike are celebrating together, having a great time. Bethlehem is not a predominantly Christian town. Bethlehem is somewhere around 40%, I think, Christian. Bet Sahur, where Shepherd's Field is at, has about 85% Christian, and Bet Jala on the other side of Bethlehem has around 75% Christian. And the Christians in those two villages are in Bet Sahur, most of them there are Greek Orthodox. In Bet Jala, they're Catholic and Syriac Christian, and Greek Orthodox and some Armenian, Christians there.
No other marriage between?
Not a whole lot. I've shared before that one of the things in the area, you can tell the Greek Orthodox homes, they have usually over the door or somebody near the door, they have George, St. George, and St. George usually on his horse with his lance, and sometimes they might even have the dragon that he slayed, because St. George is the patron saint of the Greek Orthodox Church. And many, many, many people are George or Georgiana or Georgia, that's a common name there. In Bet Sahur, that's me, there, see me, and there are 3 ladies from Arizona there, and then on the right is a woman named Sua, and her sons, Madge is on the left, and George is in the back. And we had supper with them that night, and Sua's an excellent cook, just wonderful food. It's hard to imagine. This is another picture. That's Sua, and I can't remember the little girl's name right offhand. But anyway, that's George's daughter. But it's hard to imagine that gal looks so young that she would be the mother of George. But I want you to know that, see that picture right there? That's one of my pictures. That's a painting I did of a cardinal. And right back there, you can't see it real well, but there's a blue heron back there. I gave the family a hostess gift, and that's a good thing to do when you're going to be having dinner with them, is to bring a gift of some kind, and she immediately put them up on the shelves. Thought that was kind of neat. So that's
I don't know what you ate.
what we ate.
Yes, you said
We
you
had
were cooked.
fried chicken, and we had all kinds of wonderful veggies, vegetables like great vegetables. We had breads, pita bread type of stuff, but other breads. And that's the one thing too, if you are ever in opportunity to be in another land or another culture and you are a guest in a home, it is very important that when they put the food out, that you eat it. And you don't have to eat a lot, mind you, but it's important. It really on the extension, those who are going on the extension after the regular trip, that's the hotel we'll most likely be staying at. It's a family-run hotel, a Catholic family. That's Johnny right there. He's the bartender and barista, coffee guy, whatever you want. He does all of that kind of stuff. And really neat. But they've just remodeled the hotel this winter, so it's a little bit different than we were there. But this is in Bet Jala, and Bethlehem is down that street, and up the hill, is where Bethlehem is at. And then the other area is Samaria, or the hill country of Samaria, up in here. This is West Bank, and this is West Bank. Notice that the nice farmland, this is Israel. That's all the lowlands and the farmland. This here is West Bank. This is West Bank. And that's Palestine. And Bethlehem is in West Bank. right here. And up in this area are several, especially Old Testament sites. You have Shiloh is here, Bethel there, Shechem is now Nablus, and that's where Jacob's well is at. Samaria, the city of Samaria, the Samaritans still live there, by the way. The only real place that Samaritans actually have a colony as such is in Shechem or Nablus. But that's just an overview. This is Nablus. This is the Old Testament Shechem, New Testament Sychar or Samaria. Jacob's well is there in the yellow. There's a church there, and across the street is this refugee camp, and there are over 30,000 Palestinian refugees that live in that square. And they've lived there since the early 50s. When they were removed from their villages and their farms and in what is now Israel, and had no place to go, and the United Nations started out with tents, and now those are all stone buildings, and that's 30,000 plus Palestinian refugees right there. And they have not a whole lot of hope of going anyplace else. That's one of many refugee camps in the region. So that's just to give you an idea. This picture was taken from Mount Gerizim. In the scriptures of the woman at the well, you have the woman saying, we worship on this mountain, you worship on that mountain. The mountain she says we worship, the Samaritans worship is where I'm standing, taking this picture on Mount Gerizim. And to the left, you can't see it here, but to the left would be Mount Ebal, where the Jews had their worship site. And the Samaritans still have a temple on Mount Gerizim. And we went past it, and they do animal sacrifices there once a year on the Day of Atonement. I have a minister friend of mine that he's now retired and living in Florida, but he was pastor in East Jerusalem, Palestinian Christian, and he wrote a book about what it was like. He's just a couple years older than I am, and he talks about how his family was forcibly removed from their house, and lost their businesses, lost their homes, had everything taken away, and they weren't fighting anybody. They were just Christians, generation after generation of Christians living in the Bethlehem area, and it was taken away. Now, his name is Alex Awad, and Alex did well with himself. He went on to school and went on to seminary. That's where I met him in seminary. He's was a pastor in East Jerusalem, and I got to go and speak there one time when I was there. And but his brother was the president of Bethlehem Bible College, which is an evangelical Bible college in the city of Bethlehem. That is still a very active Bible college there. His brother helped start that, and Alex taught there as well. But their story is, they were.
Are these camps still the cause of a lot of the political friction?
Well, the camps aren't. I'll show you what's the cause here in a second. Then I lived. I drank water out of Jacob's well, okay? Yeah, that is Jacob's well. That rope right there sends the bucket down. It's like 230 some feet down, but I'm drinking out of Jacob. Don't laugh at me, honey.
I'm laughing because you just said, I'll show you in a moment what the cause and problem.
There you go. The cause of the problem is right here. Anyway,
It
Jacob's
seems like
well.
it aged you.
Yes, it did.
That picture looks
His hair is shorter.
Yeah, I lost my hair there, yeah. Anyway, this is what I was going to talk about, the cause, okay? But what we have here is, a map of Jerusalem, West Jerusalem, and do you see the green line? See the green line? That green line was, it's called the Green Line. When the United Nations formed the nation of Israel and hopefully Palestine, they took a map of the region and they laid that map out and they took a green marker and they went down through, and everything on one side of that was Palestine and then the other part was Israel. Well, when you take a green magic marker, there's going to be space there. Yeah. So there are spaces that don't really show here as much, but the green line is basically a block or so wide or more, in reality. And so the green line in Jerusalem was basically a no man's land kind of a place. Nobody had it. It wasn't Israel, it wasn't Palestine. It was neither one. But as far as the United Nations is concerned, here's where I'm going with this, that the green line left is what the United Nations considers as Israel. The green line, to the right, up and down, is what the United Nations considers is Palestine. If you notice, there are a few different things on here, but everything that is golden color, those are Palestinian built-up areas or villages, where housing developments and things like that. You see Bet Jala, Bethlehem, Bet Zagur down in here. The blue are Israeli settlements. All of these are Israeli settlements where the Israelis built within Palestine. And that's the problem. The main part of it right now is that. And then this red line, the dividing wall, there's a 30-foot cement wall. And this 30-foot cement wall goes up into Palestine. You notice that? Yeah. And this is being built right here. This part here is being built. And there's part being built here, but there's some that's already built. But look at this here. Totally encircled. Yep. There are Palestinian villages totally encircled where they can't even get to other parts of Palestine. So it's just, those are the things that are causing difficulty in the area. The Israelis are just taking over the West Bank in this area, and they're moving the wall out, getting it bigger. There's another area down here that they're totally going to surround that village right there. So that kind of thing is some of the tensions that are there. And there's part of the tension too is, since they put the wall in, there haven't been any bombings. I think there's only been like one suicide bombing now in Jerusalem since they put the wall in. And the other things, the only major, attacks have been knife attacks since they put the wall in. So it is a protection for the Israeli people. It has definitely protected them from things. But there is tension within the land, for sure. It's a hard thing to find any solution to a situation here. But one of the things that I want you to understand, is ordinary folks, the vast majority of the Palestinians and the Israelis get along just fine. Plenty of people and corporations support Palestine. There's in Bet Sahur, the village of Bet Sahur, there's a brand new hospital being built. Humongous state-of-the-art hospital is being built there, and it's being paid for by, Great Britain and Canada. So it's, that kind of thing that goes on. And the schools, the United Methodists have schools in the West Bank. We have secondary schools, elementary schools, and that type of thing, orphanage. We help support Bethlehem Bible College. May even have a minister's wife teaching at Bethlehem Bible College at some point. Joyce has applied for that. You can support both sides because they're people. They're human people who want to live and breathe just like you and I do. Want to have jobs, want to raise a family, and trying to stay out of the political aspect of it and just be a friend. Any other questions tonight?
Do we have one more session then?
Yeah. One more session as a Bible study. Blessings.